To become rich, there are certain skills you need to master, and I watched over 1,000 hours of educational content from rich guys like Iman Gadzhi, Alex Hermosi, and Ali Abdaal. And throughout this time, I was able to figure out 9 skills they all have in common. And so I promise you that if you have the discipline to dedicate yourself to watching this entire video, you will be equipped with the knowledge you need to succeed. That is my promise for you today. In this video, I'm not gonna waste your time by talking about skills like editing, coding, or website development. Those skills are nice, but they are very specific. These skills I'm gonna talk about are universal, meaning you're gonna need them no matter what your plan is to get rich. It doesn't matter if you wanna be a YouTuber, a dropshipper, or a freelancer. You will need to master these skills. Otherwise, succeeding will be very difficult, if not impossible. Number 1. Discipline. Discipline is the skill of being able to do hard things even though you don't feel like doing them. And if you want to succeed in business, you're gonna need this a lot. Even if you work on something you're super passionate about, at least 70% of the time, you won't feel like working. And that's when the discipline comes in. This especially goes for guys who are just starting out. Sure, after like a year, your work becomes kind of fun because you just get better at it, and it will require much less discipline because then your work kind of becomes like your main attack. You probably know how in video games you have your main attack, which is free, and then you have some abilities which require mana. At first, your work is an ability, therefore it requires mana, and mana here being discipline. And your main attack is something like scrolling on TikTok, playing video games, or something like that. But over some time, work becomes your main attack, and that's when you will stop requiring that much discipline. Sure, sometimes you will still need it, but you will need it much less. You might need it maybe like 20 to 40% of the time. And I've actually made a full free guide on discipline. It's like an hour long, it has no edits, it's basically just a presentation where I share everything you need to know about discipline. I spent like 2 weeks making it, and so I really think it has a lot of value. So right now, click on the card in the top right corner and put that video into your watch later playlist. Number 2 is time management. We all have 24 hours in the day, but some people get way more things done in that time than others. And why is that? Well, because they mastered time management. The most successful people out there are very good at managing their time. Because time, especially before you start making a lot of money, is the way to get rich. Sure, after you're like a millionaire, you use your money to get even more money. But in the early stages, you have to use time to get rich. And right now, you have a major advantage because you have a lot of free time. And I know you probably now think, well, oh, I have this and I have this, and so I don't have that much time. But bro, just look at your screen time. Really, just take this as an actionable step. Go in your settings and check your screen time. Your screen time is probably a lot, right? So you do have time, you just use it in the wrong way. And through mastering time management, you will be able to use that time way more effectively. And so how do you actually go about learning the skill of time management so you can get the most out of your day, just like all of these millionaires you see online? First, you need to realize that your time is valuable. So every hour that you spend scrolling on TikTok, every hour that you spend playing video games will cost you something. Because you could be using that time to work on your goals. This is a mindset I want you to have, because your time is way more valuable than you think, and it will help you become better at using your time. And the second thing, which is probably a little more practical, is to create a daily schedule. And so every day, before you go to bed, plan out your perfect day. So for example, you write 6 a.m. wake up, 6:05 cold shower, 6:10 meditate, 6:30 journal, 6:40 deep work. After that, you might have school, then the gym, and so on. So basically, just develop a very specific plan of your day. Sometimes something might come up which changes the schedule, and that's fine. Then you just go to wherever you have the plan written down and change it. This is very important because, like Brian Tracy says, every minute you spend in planning saves 10 minutes in execution. This will give you a 1000% return on energy. And so realize that your time is valuable and start planning out your days. Number 3, focus. When you master focus, you can get more things done in less time. And the quicker you can get into a state of deep focus, also known as flow state, the more successful you can be. A flow state is when you basically do a certain task like work or even stuff like exercising, and you are solely focused on the task without having any other thoughts in your mind. Because the most successful people out there have trained their brain to get into a state of deep focus very quickly. And so you may wonder, how do you do it? Well, the thing we are trying to do here is to give our brain signals that it's time to focus. You could do this by, for example, having a uniform that you only wear during your work. Or you could just listen to the same song before every work session. Something like this to signal to your brain that it's time to focus. At first, it won't do anything. but over some period of time of doing it consistently, your brain learns. And then something really cool happens. All you have to do is simply turn on a song or wear a certain piece of clothing and you're locked in. And I think that's pretty cool. But what often becomes a problem for a lot of the guys trying to master the art of focus is that they're able to get into a flow state easily, but staying there becomes very difficult. They can get into a flow state really quickly, but they cannot be focused for a long period of time, and this all can be fixed with presence, which is skill number 4. Presence is when you're in the moment and there are no thoughts in your mind. And you're gonna need this a lot during your work, because often the thing that distracts you from a flow state or a state of deep focus are thoughts. Unless of course you're a dumbass and you haven't turned off your phone notifications or something like that, then it's different. But often it is actually thoughts that distract us. And when you train your presence, you can reduce the number of random thoughts you get when you're working. And also, you'll be able to not get so attached to them. Meaning, if I were to get a thought about something I need to do during my workout while working, if I have a high level in the skill of presence, I can let go of the thought without spending time obsessing about it. And that's very powerful, because it will save you so much time during your work sessions. And so how do you train your presence? Well, it's with the one skill I recommend in almost every video. It's meditation. Meditation is where you sit down for a few minutes a day, you close your eyes, and you focus on a certain body part. Very often it's the breath, but it can also be sound, smell, touch, etc. And you basically just focus on this one small thing for a few minutes. And whenever you get a thought, you acknowledge it and then you return back to the sensation you are focusing on. A lot of people think that when you get a thought during your meditation session, it's a bad thing, but it's actually not. You're supposed to get thoughts and get interrupted. That's how you train your presence. When you get a thought and then you come back to the breath, that's like one rep at the gym. And so the cycle basically goes like this. First you're focusing on a certain sensation, so the breath, touch, smell, whatever. Then after a while of focusing, you start to lose your presence and you get distracted by some thought. And that's perfectly normal. But after some time, you start realizing that you have this thought and then you come back to the breath. And that's basically the cycle you experience when meditating. And this is the way you actually get more present. And so if you learn to let go of thoughts during these meditation sessions, you will see a great improvement in your skill of being able to stay longer in a flow state. And also, you'll just become happier because being present brings joy to your brain. Number 5. Communication. Being able to communicate your thoughts and ideas clearly without coming off as weird is becoming increasingly more valuable over time. We all spend so much time inside, scrolling away on social media, sometimes even going days without human contact. And because of this, a lot of people have really bad social skills. This is actually something I struggled the most with over my self-improvement journey. And I think that this is what most guys struggle or have struggled with as well. And it's a shame, because in business and life in general, you need to be able to communicate your thoughts with others, because that's the way to make the most progress. You either communicate with people who are far above you and ask them for advice, or you communicate with your customers to make your product better. And if you are bad at communicating, people who are better than you won't want to give you advice because you're just not nice to be around, and your customers will stop buying from you. There are so many guys in my Discord who send me a DM asking me advice like I'm Google or something. Like, I literally get DMs saying how to make money. Whenever I get this message, I just ignore it because it's not worth it and it just pisses me off. Like, if you want advice from someone, you need to be nice to them first. I'm not obligated to give you advice. I do it because I want to. And if you're not a nice person, I'm not gonna give you advice. So you gotta understand that social skills are not only needed for business and relationships, but also learning. So start improving your social skills. And the best way you can improve your social skills is by mastering the book, How to Influence and Influence People. I recommend that you buy this book and you don't just read it like a normal person, page after page. No, I think the best way to go about it is you read about a principle, like for example, encourage the other person to speak about themselves, and you go and immediately use it. You either go on the street and you talk to someone, or you talk with a family member, or you even go online, like for example on my Discord or basically any other Discord, and you just talk to people there. If you go and immediately implement what you've just learned, you will be able to learn it far better than the person who just reads it. And soon, if you do this enough, you'll find yourself using these principles automatically. And then you'll have better social skills than 99% of the people out there. Skill number 6, Stoicism. Being stoic doesn't necessarily mean being emotionless, like everyone else nowadays seems to think. No, Stoicism is when you still have emotions and you are aware of them, but you do not choose to act on them. This means that if you randomly get some emotional feeling to go randomly scam your audience in the future for some quick bucks by making some random pump and dump crypto coin, you won't do it, because instead of acting on your emotions, you will think about it logically and you'll realize, well, okay, I might make some quick money with this, but over a long period of time, my audience friends will start disliking me, which will lead to me making less money and also having a worse impact on the world. And so it's not worth it. A stoic person will think like this, but the emotional person will do whatever he felt like doing at that time, which was to scam his audience. And these people, so emotional people, are the people who end up ruining their career within a matter of days. And so being emotional is not a good thing. Learn to control your emotions. Use your willpower to feel an emotion, like for example anger, and just observe your symptoms. Your forehead is getting hotter, you're getting some negative thoughts, your heart rate is increasing. Feel these emotions and almost look at it with a sense of interest, because it is kind of interesting how you have a physical reaction to a certain emotion. Feel these emotions, but don't act on them, because emotions come and go, and you can't really control how you feel. But what you can control is whether or not you act on them. You can't really control whether or not you get angry, but what you can control is whether or not you choose to act on that anger by, for example, shouting at someone you love. So being stoic will not only help you make better decisions, but it will also help you deal with people in a much more controlled manner. Skill number 7, learning. If you want to get into business, get a high-level career, or just become really successful in something, maybe a sport, maybe some sort of art like music or drawing, you need to start learning, because the key to achieving success in basically anything is learning. Because if you don't learn, how do you expect to improve? It's as simple as that. If you don't learn, you stop making progress, because you stop getting ideas on what to implement. You stop getting inspiration, and therefore you stop making progress in business and overall as a person, which means your overall life quality gets worse as well. There have been so many studies which have shown that if you don't learn and if you don't drastically update your brain and your knowledge every year, you start experiencing minor forms of brain damage, which means that your brain literally starts deteriorating once you stop learning. And I'd actually say that this is the reason why old people get dementia. I'm obviously not an expert or anything. This is just what I think. I think that if you stop using your brain, if you don't use it to learn or work or basically anything, it will start to deteriorate. I think it's just like muscles. If you stop using them, they will get weaker. And so that's why I think that if you stop using your brain to learn, it will start to deteriorate. Therefore, even causing stuff like dementia. And you know, old people get dementia and all these brain problems. So why should we care? We're young. Well, because the sad thing about this is that this is starting to happen to us as well. There are literally teenagers whose brains have already started to deteriorate, because all they do is come back home from school, where they basically didn't even pay attention to the class, and just lay in their bed or lay on the couch and scroll on TikTok all day, just frying their dopamine receptors all the time. What kind of a future will that be? Think about how sad this is. There are literally 13-year-old kids whose brains already don't work properly. And so really take my word for this and just try your best to learn something every day, because learning is absolutely essential to not only function as a human, but also to become successful and stay successful. So I have an actionable step for you. Start developing this as your new identity. You are a lifelong student. You are a guy who learns all the time. Take it almost as like common sense. Like, yeah, I'm a lifelong student. Of course I learn every day. Of course I read books. Of course I watch educational videos. And of course I'm gonna keep doing this no matter what part of life I'm in. Because there have been so many cases of people who used to be at the top and then they stopped learning, and so they fell back down. And the entire reason for it is because their ego got to their head. They thought they're too good, and so they don't need to learn anymore. They didn't have humility, which is actually skill number 8. Humility is the skill of defying your ego. Your ego is basically this loser part of you that tells you that you don't need to improve anymore, because you are already really great anyway. So why bother? Why waste your time? The guy with the big ego is kinda like that know-it-all. You've probably had a guy like that in school who just pretends to know everything. So for example, at the gym, the guy with the big ego has probably achieved some success already. So he probably has a pretty respectable physique, but he doesn't learn anymore. He thinks that he's already jacked, and so after those newbie gains kind of fall off, he doesn't make much progress after that. He thinks that he's already jacked, and so he doesn't keep learning, and so he keeps looking the same, if not worse. But the guy with humility goes to the gym, and he understands that there are people who know much more about training than he does, and so he learns from them. And so obviously he ends up getting even more jacked than the first guy. But guess what? He keeps learning even more after that, and so he keeps making more and more progress. And this perfectly applies to making money. Once you stop learning about your business model and your ego takes over, you suddenly stop making progress. Once you stop reading books and watching educational videos, you stop making progress. Because if you don't know how to improve, if you don't get ideas and inspiration to be better, you just won't make progress. It's as simple as that. And so never stop learning, because that's when most people fail. Skill number 9. Patience. Patience is the skill of understanding that success takes time and staying in for the long run. A huge problem I see with a lot of guys is that they try a business model, like for example dropshipping or becoming a YouTuber or whatever, and they don't see a result for like 2 weeks, and so they quit, and they're essentially just jumping from business model to business model and just not making any real progress. The thing is, to achieve success in anything, you need to be patient. A lot of people these days are impatient because they are addicted to instant gratification from watching so much TikTok and other short form content, and so they want to see results so much sooner than they actually should, and so they keep switching up and they just get super frustrated. So if you want success in anything, whether it's fitness, business, or anything, you need to be patient. Success is kind of like an old train. When it starts, it goes quite slowly, maybe like 20 miles per hour, right? Very slow, but over some time, it starts gaining some speed. First, it's like 50 miles an hour, then 60, 70, 80, and before you know it, it's going like 150 miles an hour. But the impatient guy got off when he noticed that the train wasn't going very fast at the beginning. And so don't be that guy. Really quickly, scroll down, click on the subscribe button, share this video with a friend who also wants to make money, join my Discord server with the first link in the description, and bye.